In the future world, humanity has unlocked the secret to digital immortality through a revolutionary technology known as the cortical stack. Implanted at the base of the skull, this small device records a person's consciousness, their memories, thoughts, and identity. When a body dies, the stack can be transferred into a new body or sleeve, effectively allowing individuals to live again. This process, known as resleeving, has transformed death from a permanent state into a logistical hurdle. For the wealthy elite, known as Meths, short for Methuselahs, this technology offers endless life. These individuals maintain multiple cloned sleeves and regularly back up their stacks to remote storage, ensuring that even if their physical form is destroyed, a recent version of their consciousness can be restored. With the means to manipulate the legal and technological systems around stack transfers, Meths hold immense power over life and death, often controlling who gets to be resleeved and who stays permanently dead. In this society where bodies are commodities and the poor can only hope for secondhand sleeves or none at all, immortality is not a right but a privilege bought and sold by the rich. Takeshi Kovacs was born and raised on Harlan's World, a violent corporate-controlled colony planet. It was a place where poverty was the norm and violence was survival. Growing up surrounded by crime and oppression, Kovacs became hardened early, navigating gangs, betrayal, and bloodshed long before he was old enough to carry a weapon legally. Eventually, his talents caught the attention of the Protectorate military, and he was recruited into the Envoy Corps, an elite branch reserved for the most psychologically adaptable and physically capable soldiers. Joining them meant submitting to the most brutal training imaginable, but it also meant a new purpose, a new identity. The envoys were more than just warriors. They were specialists in body-switching warfare, taught to wake up in unfamiliar bodies on foreign worlds and adapt in seconds. They could manipulate, resist torture, override pain, and disorient enemies with psychological tactics. Kovacs rose to become one of the most capable among them. It was during this time that Kovacs met Quellcrist Falconer, a revolutionary philosopher and former scientist who saw the dark future humanity was spiraling toward. She believed immortality through digital resleeving was corrupting the soul and entrenching the rich in permanent power. Kovacs became both her follower and her lover, adopting her ideals as his own. But Quell's revolution failed. The Protectorate crushed the uprising. Kovacs was captured and sentenced to digital stasis, his consciousness stored in a stack, his body destroyed. As years passed, his mind remained frozen, waiting, and waiting, until something unexpected happened. Back on Earth, centuries later in Bay City, once known as San Francisco, Lawrence Bancroft, one of the wealthiest men alive, was found dead. His cortical stack had been blown out, his body left in ruins. But like all Meths, Bancroft had a remote backup. He was restored, minus the last 48 hours of memory, and insisted he hadn't killed himself. The police believed it was suicide, but Bancroft wasn't convinced. Using his immense influence, he petitioned to have Takeshi Kovacs resleeved, temporarily released from digital storage and placed into a new body. Kovacs was given a job, solve Bancroft's murder. He accepted cautiously. Kovacs woke up in the sleeve of Elias Riker, a Bay City police officer currently imprisoned under murky charges. This body came with complications, especially with Kristen Ortega, Riker's former partner and lover, who was furious to see her ex's body walking around inhabited by someone else. Despite Ortega's suspicions and resentment, Kovacs began the investigation. He discovered that Bancroft had been involved with multiple prostitutes, including a young woman named Elizabeth Elliott, who had recently been murdered. Her death raised even more questions than answers. Elizabeth's mother, Irene, had hacked into Bancroft's data in an attempt to find out the truth and was punished by being placed into stack storage. Her husband, too poor to afford resleeving either of them, was left with nothing. Kovacs started to see just how wide the gap was between the living rich and the dead poor. As he dug deeper, Kovacs was attacked by a Russian mercenary named Cadman. He survived the encounter, and Cadman was briefly captured. Meanwhile, Lawrence's wife Miriam attempted to seduce Kovacs and offered him a bribe to walk away from the case. He refused. Investigating further, Kovacs traced Elizabeth's last movements to a brothel connected to the Way Clinic, a black market operation that stole and sold human bodies. But before he could act, he was captured and subjected to intense virtual and physical torture by the clinic's staff. Claiming his status as an envoy, Kovacs was able to bluff his way out. The doctors believed he could override their methods and feared retaliation. Kovacs escaped, returned with firepower, and destroyed both the brothel and the clinic, killing everyone involved in its operation. Soon after, Kovacs was found by a tracker named Trep. She offered to take him to the person truly behind everything. On the way, Kovacs and Ortega were seriously injured by an explosion orchestrated by the now-escaped Cadman. Kovacs recovered and agreed to meet Trep's mysterious employer. Trep brought Kovacs to Ray, revealed to be Raylene Kawahara, a meth mob boss who also happened to be Kovacs' former envoy partner. Years ago, she had tried to recruit him into her rising criminal empire. He'd refused, and now she wanted the case buried, threatening Sarah Sokolowski's virtual self as leverage. Kovacs reluctantly pretended to go along with it. He told Bancroft that he had caught the Rawlings virus at a brothel, a digital infection that corrupts stacks and makes resleeving impossible. To protect his clones and legacy, he claimed, Bancroft had killed himself. A tidy lie, believable enough. Kawahara agreed to supply Kovacs with a copy of the Rawlings virus. With her help, Kovacs retrieved Irene Elliott from storage and gave her a task: sneak the virus into a brothel system. It was a risky play, but necessary to dismantle Kawahara's hold on the sex trade. Meanwhile, things between Kovacs and Ortega became more personal. The two began a romantic relationship, tentative, fragile, but real. Still, the investigation continued. Kovacs discovered that Bancroft had visited a flying brothel called Head in the Clouds the night he died. It was owned by Kawahara. At that brothel, a Catholic prostitute had been murdered, and by law, if Resolution 653 is passed, she had to be resleeved so she could testify. But Kawahara couldn't let that happen. Bringing the prostitute back would expose everything. So she framed Riker for corruption and tried to block a law called Resolution 653 from being passed. Resolution 653 would have forced resleeving for murder victims, regardless of religious status. Kawahara needed it dead. She had approached Bancroft to help kill the bill, but he refused. So she and Miriam drugged him. In a haze, he killed the prostitute, and then himself, trying to erase the guilt along with his memory. Cadman returned once again, this time kidnapping Ortega. He threatened to kill her unless Kovacs surrendered. Kovacs agreed. They fought brutally. Trep and the police arrived in time to end it, and Kovacs destroyed Cadman's stack once and for all. Then came the final move. Kovacs illegally double-sleeved, splitting his consciousness between two bodies. One version left with Miriam to draw attention, while the other, with Ortega and Irene, infiltrated Head in the Clouds to bring Kawahara down. Irene planted the Rawlings virus into Kawahara's backup system, guaranteeing that death would be final. Kovacs confronted Kawahara and forced a confession from her. As the confrontation peaked, he blew open the side of the airship and jumped, dragging her with him into free fall. As they plunged toward the ocean, Kovacs detonated a grenade, destroying her stack midair. There would be no resurrection this time. Kawahara was gone, for good. In the aftermath, the UN cleared Bancroft of involvement. Riker was freed from storage, Irene got her body back, Elizabeth was finally laid to rest. Resolution 653 passed, ensuring protection for future victims. And the Kovacs copy could not stay with Miriam, and he was erased as double-sleeving is a capital crime. But before being deleted, that copy asked the surviving Kovacs to protect Miriam's role in the scandal. The real Kovacs honored the promise. He turned down Bancroft's reward, walked away from Bay City, and returned to Harlan's world, still haunted by Quellcrist Falconer's voice, but finally free to choose what came next.